Terumot, Perek Yud Aleph, Mishnah Chet, 8th Mishnah in the 11th chapter of Terumot. We're continuing our discussion about how much do I have to worry about drops left over, small amounts left over when I'm moving from Terumah or I lost some Terumah. So this Mishnah is a continuation. The last Mishnah we said that if my Terumah oil spilled, I don't have to pick it up, scoop it up every little small amount. I would treat it the way I would treat chulin oil. So this Mishnah is a continuation of that. I've got Terumah in my jug, and I need to empty this jug out, and I want to put chulin in instead. Okay, so I've got to fully empty out the Terumah. So the Mishnah says, once I pour it out, you pour it, and it's like, you pour and you pour and you pour, and then the flow ends, and then you have 3 drips, 1, 2, 3, then noten lecha chulin. Okay, as he says, yayin or shemen, it's either wine or oil, then I can put chulin inside. There's little dregs at the bottom, there's a tiny amount. That tiny amount is not a problem. Okay? That the bright Terumah says, after you poured everything in it, drip, 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 tipa achar tipa, 3 drops. This is what happens when you have vessels. We've all seen it, with the honey, well, not even honey, oil or whatever. Then noten lecha chulin, you can noten letocha chulin, you can put chulin in it. You don't have to clean it out. You don't have to scoop it out like we said. You can put chulin. Remember, we learned in 2 Mishnayot ago about the storage house. The same way you don't have to clean it out like Pesach cleaning and clean out every single grain. This is the same idea as well. But herkina umitza. Now let's say you then left it. You left it on its side. This reminds me of the ketchup. Like nowadays you buy the ketchup, they sell it upside down. But it used to be like you squeeze out the ketchup and you couldn't get anything else out. But if you left it upside down, you'd always get a small amount at the bottom. Same thing is true here. You left this thing umitza, and it lematzot means it gathered together. I mean there was a small amount gathered. Then harei zot truma. Then that is once it's there. Once you have an amount there, you can't say, well, if I had poured chulin in it, would have been batel. No, but you didn't. You left it on its side, and a small amount gathered together. Let's just read the Bar Tenura. If you put it on its side to the chavit, okay. Umitza yayin or shemen shaya ba v'nira kanus betocha, and it gathered. There's a small amount at the bottom of the ketchup bottle. Harezu truma. Then you have to treat it like truma. V'lo armin chulin hein. You can't say it's chulin. Ho'il v'yirakom betocho v'natvu mena shalosh tipin. You say, well, I did the drop test. Yes, but then you poured it out. Then you tipped it over. You left it on its side, and you allowed the ketchup to gather, the truma ketchup to gather at the bottom. Now, the Mishnah, for some reason, I'm not sure, it turns to this issue of Trumat Ma'aser Shel Demai. Just in order to review, if you recall, what's Demai? Demai is when you buy produce from an Am Haaretz. We assume that the Am Haaretz took off Terumot, but he didn't want to give a whole Ma'aser to the Levi. You got to be kidding. But he did realize that in the Ma'aser is what's called Trumat Ma'aser, which is Chayab Mita B'dei Shamayim. So he didn't realize that. That's a problem. So the halacha there's a whole masechta about this that we've learned, Masechet Demai. And the halacha is that if you buy from an Am Haaretz, you have to take off Trumat Ma'aser Shel Demai. You have to take off 1/100th, which is 1/10 of the Ma'aser, which is 1/10 of the 1/10, and you have to give it to the Kohen as Demai. So the Mishnah says, since we're talking about teeny amounts, for some reason the Mishnah got on to Trumat Ma'aser Shel Demai. The Kamatehei, Trumat Ma'aser Shel Demai v'yolichena ala Kohen. What if I buy a tiny amount of oil from the Am Haaretz? So therefore, 1/100th is a tiny, tiny amount. What's the minimum amount of oil that I would have to give to the Am Haaretz? Says the Mishnah, that I have to give to the Kohen, echad mishmoneh l'shminit, 1/8 of an eighth of a log, 1/64th of a log, and that's called a kortov. And I guess they knew how much that was. I don't know how much that is, but you could look it up on your charts on the internet if you want. 1/64th of a log. If you have 1/64th of a log, and we can look at the Bar Tenura here, 1/64th of a log, then you have to give it to the Kohen. Less than that, you can get rid of it. The Bar Tenura adds, based on the Yerushalmi though, Hani mili b'tameh. That's only if it's Trumat Ma'aser Shel Demai Tameh. Aval b'tahor, but if it's tahor, afilu koldu, any small amount tzarich lachzor b'demai, in demai, no matter what. And in Trumat Vadai, bein Tameh, bein tahor, bein rav, bein ma'at, tzarich lechazer akar kohen. There's no minimum amount of Trumat Vadai. So this rule, according to the Yerushalmi, this Mishnah, only applies this 1/64th, 1 kortov, only applies if you're talking about Trumat Ma'aser Shel Demai Tameh, which you should be worried about if you have any at home. We'll stop here. We'll dedicate the learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. And as always, if you have comments or questions, arspoter@gmail.com. Have a good day.